Hello and welcome back once again to Molby On The Spot here on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Trev Downey, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm joined, of course, by the Liverpool legend that is Mr. Jan Molby. Good evening, Jan.
Good evening, Trevor. I hope you're well.
I am, my friend. Yes, I am feeling slightly better for the first time in about 17 weeks. So I'll take that. Bit of progress on the old health front. And we've lots to talk about. We have lots to get through on this one. If you are joining us live, that's brilliant. If you could push the link around, we'd appreciate it, because there seems to be some issue at the StreamYard end here in terms of getting that out to Twitter. I noticed the live viewers down a lot over the last couple of shows, so there's some issue there. If you have it, if you have the link, push it around on your socials to other people so they can join us live. Also, we'd appreciate that. And I'll try and keep an eye on the comments, but no promises. We have a lot to get through today, Jan and I. And my friend, we're going to start by putting you right on the spot and making you do a thing that I'm always self-conscious of doing myself. But hey, this is the gig we're in, which is to watch a little bit of yourself talking. I want to share the screen here so that people can see a tweet by Liverpool Football Club in which the man himself here was asked to give his greatest top 10 Liverpool players ever. So, without further ado, let's just have a listen. It is 2 minutes and 53 seconds. So 3 minutes of Jan going through his 10 choices. And we'll grill him a bit about it afterwards. And he can tell us about the reaction he's had, because I've got a little bit of an insight already. So here we go.
I'm Jan Molby, and this is my top 10 for Liverpool's greatest. In 10th, Luis Suarez. The touch, the vision, the goals. Terrific footballer. Number 9, Ray Clemence. Very unusual to have a goalkeeper in a list like this, but the importance of Ray back in the 70s, early 80s, a terrific goalkeeper, world class. So in 9th, Ray Clemence. In 8th, Virgil van Dijk. There can be no doubt Virgil van Dijk's importance for when he joined Liverpool and how a superb defender he's been right the way through his career. So calm under pressure, so good on the ball. In 7th, Alan Hansen, another central defender, another Mr. Cool, read the game, quick, good on the ball, won plenty of trophies. In 6th place, Mo Salah. I mean, what can you say about Mo? From the moment he joined Liverpool, he's been in terrific form, scoring goals, assists, and has a massive, massive impact on where the club is at today. In 5th, we have Graham Souness. What a player. Midfield player who could take any game by the scruff of the neck, home or away, competitive, physical, loved it all. In 4th, John Barnes. When John came to Liverpool, I think he simply blew our minds. I think we'd all seen him play for Watford and for England, but weren't quite aware of how fantastic he was. In 3rd place, Ian Russ. I think when you score as many goals as Ian Russ, there's a tendency to just associate you with goals. But there was so much more to this man's game. First line of defence, good on the ball, and he had this unbelievable ability to just create that little bit of space for your pass to go through to him. In 2nd, Steven Gerrard. I think there's probably only 2 players in the history of Liverpool Football Club where you almost feel that they carried the team unknown, and that was Billy Little back in the 40s, 50s and early 60s, and Steven Gerrard. How many times have Steven Gerrard had to get the team out of trouble? And he's remembered for so many great moments. He had it all. Big, strong, great athlete, great shot, great vision, fantastic footballer. And at number 1, we have the great man himself, Sir Kenny Dalglish. Kenny was one of these players that you almost felt he could see into the future. He saw things before anyone else saw them. And that was his real strength. Now it's your turn. And cast your...
Well, man, I have to ask you. Let me just go back if I can try and get this still here, which has the full... there we go. Right, so folks can see that now. So before I change the screen back, I'll leave that up for a second. I wanted to just get your take on it. You've let me know in advance of doing this that you've had quite the response to this. And it is remarkable how much these things take hold in people's minds. I don't see too much controversy with it. It's just a really good list of footballers. These things are always kind of subjective anyway. Maybe some people might, I don't know, look sideways at Ray Clements. I just thought it was a great shout. I love that list, man. I absolutely love it. Tell me about the reaction you've had to it so far, because I believe it's been quite impressive.
Yeah, it's just madness, isn't it, Trevor? When you do things. So when the club asked us, they said, the lads are coming in over the next few weeks to do some work for Liverpool TV. We're asking them all just to throw a list together, generate a bit of interest. I did it on a Thursday morning. I'd never given a second thought. And then the next thing's released. Well, I knew when it was released because my phone never stopped. And the thing with these lists are, Trevor, that everybody's got an opinion, haven't they? It's something that everybody can do and everybody have an opinion on. And I mean, you said there wasn't a lot of controversy in this. I don't think there was either. But of course, there will be people who feel that way. So what I tried to do was to stay with the players that I'd seen with my own eyes. I would feel almost a fraud if I put in Billy Little, because I've never seen Billy play. So that just didn't feel right. So the four players I struggled with was Billy Little, Ian Callaghan, Sir Roger Hunt, and Robbie Fowler. They were kind of the four. I'm thinking Liverpool fans of a certain generation will go, well, what about a couple of World Cup winners and Billy Little and whatever, and the most natural goal scorer we've ever had. So they were the four that I was really struggling with. But I had some players that, well, I had one player who needed to be in the list, and that was Luis Suarez. I don't know how many people would put Luis Suarez in because the lack of trophies and the lack of longevity, But I just, sometimes you just go, that'll do for me, that. Yeah. Thanks, Lewis. That'll do for me. You have no idea how I've enjoyed that. So he had to be in my list. There will be people putting him high up on the list, but they'll be under less scrutiny than what I was. You know what I mean? Because obviously everybody will have an opinion. Goalkeeper, I often saw with my own eyes how good Ray Clements is. But it's as much to do with my teammates and also fans of that generation that go, have you any idea? And I said, well, probably not quite, no. I see a very good goalkeeper. And they went, he was so much more than a great goalkeeper. So, and then people go, well, what about Alisson? But then I would go, I wouldn't have two goalkeepers then. And then if I had to between Alisson and Ray Clements, I'd go, well, Alisson can't compete with the trophies that Ray won. So I just felt that Ray was the right guy. And then, of course, the big talking point was where do you put Mo Salah? For some people, and I would never argue with them, will have him as the greatest player the club's ever had. I just found it difficult to see him being a better footballer than the five I got ahead of him: Souness, Barnes, Russ, Gerrard, and Sir Kenny. But people will have plenty of it. I'm sure you got plenty of questions, Trevor. So let's go with it.
I love your list, man. I love your list, and I think what tends to happen with these things is that, and if I was put in the spot myself, it's a head-heart thing as well, right? So Robbie would make it onto my top 10 favorite footballers, right? Because there's a year or something between Robbie and I was watching him coming up when he was just a kid, and I was still thinking maybe I could do something in football, and he was so good. He was just so good. So he's got a special place for me. But if I'm being objective about it and picking out the 10 best players, then like you have to look into the storied past of the club. How can Ian Callaghan not be on your list? And yet you've got a bias towards the people you've seen. And that's particularly why I love that list, because these are footballers that you are, let's be honest, very, very fortunate to actually share a field with a lot of those guys, which is quite remarkable in and of itself. And I'll tell you what I loved about your list the most, how high up Rush he was on it, because he's one of the most, I don't think history's treating Ian Rush well, Jan.
Yeah.
I'll ask you about that, because when I was a nipper watching Liverpool, and when I was a young man watching Liverpool in that era when Rush was playing, it was unquestioned that he was the best striker the game had seen. Nobody with that. Nobody argued with that. Then there's the Premier League era, and all of a sudden, football is reinvented, and Alan Shearer has been put in the same bracket. He's not. And, you know, other people are being put in the same bracket, and they're not. I just think it's weird to see how there's a certain element, I won't call it disrespect, but I will call it ignorance, that has crept in about just how good Ian Rush was. Even if you just look at the figures, you can't argue with them. But as you said, there was so much more to his game.
I think the thing with Ian Rush is if you talk about great players and you'll go, Graham Souness, and someone will go, well, what was so special about him? You don't have to do that with Rushy, do you? So you kind of stirred over and you just go, oh, yeah, it's goals. So people just assume, oh, yeah, Rushy's all about goals. And that's why, as you said, this period where it's not treating him as well as he should have, because people go, yeah, he scored all the goals. And then because people have no idea. People have no idea what he did with the ball, but more importantly, without the ball. And when we talk about as if Jurgen Klopp invented the press from the front and whatever, like Ian Rush was all over that for years. But he was just a dream to play with, and you can go through them all. You know, Kenny played with him. Obviously, that's the main partnership, isn't it? But you go through all of them, isn't it? And everybody talks about, you know, how easy he was to play with, because of how clever he was with his movement, and how good he was for your team, isn't it? So equally, I also think that had I wished to put Rushy as number one, my argument would simply have been the greatest goal scorer we've ever had, 346 goals. Yeah, and I think you can get away with that in it. But I think when you dig into it a little bit more, I think it felt right for me that Ian Rush is third. I mean, fourth and fifth, you know, Barnes and Souness, two terrific footballers, isn't he? I mean, but Rushy, as you rightly say, isn't it? You know, in that. And yeah, you are probably right. There is probably Andy Coles and of this world, and whatever people, maybe Ian Wright, you know, maybe people are foolishly thinking that they were better players than Ian Rush. Well, I can tell them that that's probably not the case.
I think if you asked each of those guys, ego and all this they may have, they probably wouldn't think they were better than Ian Rush either. That's how unquestioned his reputation was. Just a quick question about playing with him. Like a footballer specifically of your talents and a footballer specifically of his talents, obviously the links with Kenny over the years before you got there were kind of legend. And I don't know, did it peak? Kenny won all the awards in '83 for Footballer of the Year, and he was having one of those sort of Mo Salah seasons from last season where everyone was just looking at this guy and going, Jesus Christ, what a footballer this lad is. But it was his link-ups with Rushy that were catching the eye as well as his own goals. Then you come along, man, and realistically speaking, I've seen several footballers recently, actually, man. Yeah, I meant to say this to you, and I will find the clip, talking about, actually, one of them was Jamie Carragher, talking about the best players that they had seen or trained with. And there were two, and you were one of them. So I'm thinking, someone with your particular set of talents and Rushy, that must have been a dream for you, with his ability to run into spaces and your ability to see those spaces.
Yeah, it was a dream. I mean, one thing was the threat he was in behind, but also Trevor just opened up the angle. You know, he was so clever. That moment with him and the centre half are both looking at the midfield player with the possession, and that centre half is continuing to look at. Let's say it's me with the ball. Rushy's just opened up the ankle, you know, and you're going bang. His first touch is great. He was unbelievably two-footed. He's never given enough credit for how good he was two-footed. Open up the angle, first touch away from defenders and always across defenders. Yeah, nobody ever recovered once Ian Rush was away, because his first touch was great, and he always tried to try and run across them or run in front of them. You know what I mean? But the key to all and everything he did was his first touch. His first touch sets himself for often his second touch being a finish. You know, a couple of them goals that we see quite a bit at Everton when he scored forward. If you watch that unbelievably knack of his first touch just being the right length, yeah, not too far for the goalkeeper to be able to come, but far enough for him not to lose any stride and for him not to have to touch the ball again before he puts it in the back of the net. That in itself, Trevor, make it easy for yourself. You look at how many strikers they get. It's whipped into them. They get stuck in between their feet. Then they're stumbling, aren't they? You don't get it out from their feet. And then before they've sorted the ball out, then you've got to try and deal with the defender. Rush's second nature, all of that. Bang, bang, bang. See you later. And that's what it was like. So you could easily go to Anfield and watch Liverpool win 5-0 and Ian Rush score a hat-trick and come away and go, I'll tell you what, Jan Molby was brilliant. Because you kind of forget. Because Rushy just did it. Yeah, bang, 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 bang. It was so easy, wasn't it? And that's probably what you're saying today in the world today, is that when people look back and they talk about Paul Gascoigne in our area, Madeline Sissy and whatever. Yeah, hey, right. Okay, yeah, but nowhere near it. I mean, nowhere near Ian Rush. But they're the kind of players that's getting chalked up from our era, isn't it? Are you any idea how good they were? Well, yeah, they were highly good players, but nowhere near this lad who was the number one in the world for quite a while.
There's nothing like a striker's first touch to make a good midfielder's pass look even better as well, and that's for sure. There was a category I was thinking about during the week, and I want to hop this one off you before we get into the main usual business of the show, because I'm always curious to get your opinion on these things. I was looking at some stuff of Jari Litmanen in his brief period with Liverpool, and I started to think about a category. I was trying to put one together of the right player in the wrong time. And I've got three from a recent-ish era, kind of, I think they're all Rafa Benitez era. I'm thinking Fernando Morientes, I'm thinking Harry Kewell, and I'm thinking Jari Litmanen, as three players who, if we had had them in the case of Morientes and Kewell and Litmanen younger, then I think, we're off to the races. I really do. I think they're three wonderful footballers, but we just didn't get the best of them. Now, obviously, Jari was very much a veteran when we got him, but there was little snippets, wasn't there, of where you just thought, oh God, this lad is such a Liverpool player. First of all, is there anyone else you could think of that might fit onto that list, even to make out a top five? And what was your just take on Litmanen and how close he could have been, or how irritatingly close it is to him having been a Red legend?
So, and I'm not making this up, Trevor, but a friend of mine texted me on Tuesday after the list was released, and he himself didn't have Barnes in his top five, yeah? And he went, I never realised you rated Barnes that highly. Was he the most skillful teammate, or was he the most skillful player you've seen at Anfield? And I sent him a text back and I went, Jari Litmanen.
No way.
Yes, that's exactly what I put. I put Jari Litmanen, and he went, wow. And then to be fair, he put in the text, Jari Litmanen he arrived at the time when we weren't ready for him. But the good thing with Jari Litmanen is that I saw enough Ajax and Barcelona to realise, and when I talk about, that silky touch, and I always think that when you look at somebody like Teddy Sheringham and how he carried on playing till he was in the early 40s and he was still a great player, you think of what he did in his late 30s down at Portsmouth, whatever, with that great touch and vision, whatever. I always thought Jari Litmanen could have been that, carry on playing, because he didn't have to run, did he? He just find space, and and I just used to love watching Jari Litmanen find a bit of space, ball getting pinged in, killed dead with the first touch here, and before anyone else can react, But his big problem when he arrived at Liverpool was that when he's had that first touch, he's gone. They've all gone. Sorry, mate. I didn't see it. So, yeah, Harry Kewell is a good shout actually, because Harry's obviously mainly remembered for the Champions League final and that strange decision to put him in. But managers have blind spots, don't they? And you look at some players and you go, yeah, we got a player here. If Harry Kewell from Leeds turns up, so yeah, Harry Kewell's a good shout. And Fernando Morientes, yeah. I mean, he was another one. When we signed him, I thought, wow, what a good. I think I only really saw, I might have got this wrong, I didn't see all the games. I think I really only saw one real Morientes action at Anfield. I think it was against Fulham. It was an unbelievable header, and I went, that's the boy we know, But it's very unusual for a Spanish striker to come over here, and probably his main strength being his heading ability, isn't it? But I'll try and think of other players who arrived at the wrong time. and therefore didn't quite fulfil either what they'd done before or what they went on to achieve after. Although, having said that, Trevor, there's very few who leave and become better players because of it, isn't there?
Oh, for sure. And I thought there might be someone in the Souness era that would have jumped out at you, but there were an awful lot
I'm
of
just
big,
trying to think. Yeah.
there were high-profile signings that just didn't quite make the cut at Liverpool, and even someone like Robbie Keane, who did a little cameo towards the end of his career. There's an interesting top 10 you could certainly put together.
I think possibly David James might be one of them. You know, coming to Liverpool and obviously being bought as a first choice way too early. I think he was 22, which I was there. It just felt like it was way too early. And I think in the end, he carved out a great career for himself. Had quite a few clubs in it, but he's got a hell of an England career as well. And so I think David James might be one of them where you go, young goalkeeper, arrived a bit too early. Pressure taken over from Bruce Grobbelaar, pressure of, playing in a team that was trying to fight their way back in amongst the teams fighting for the. So David James, but I'll keep thinking as well.
Oh, I like that. It's a great shout for our list. Yeah, lovely. Let's look back quickly then at the game that was at the weekend, and an awful lot of people, I think, were sort of out the gap a little bit frustrated when they saw the lineup against Forest with Dom Szoboszlai selected at right back. Obviously, there was an enforced change with Florian Wirtz. It's still all a bit vague what's going on with him. The noises we're hearing are still a bit vague what that was. I think it was referred to as a back injury by one or two people. Anyway, Dom Szoboszlai started at right back, which I had predicted, even though it was the last thing I wanted to see. And obviously then Curtis Jones, who I would have thought would have been a shoe-in to start anyway, wasn't going to start, but then did start because of the Wirtz situation. And he started in midfield, having put in a good shift at right back. So to me, it felt like a double kick in the face for Curtis. It was like, yeah, you were good there, but you're back out of the team. And now you're back in the team at the last minute. And we're going to put Szoboszlai there where you were the last day. Quite impressive because he's better. And and obviously Gravenberch and Gakpo get their selection, as does McAllister, and there's so much underperformance in that first half, Jan. It's an embarrassment. There's technique across the board was appalling. Touch, control, passing accuracy. We were very reliant on Ali and Virgil and Ibu being solid. I thought Milos Kerkez did some good defending again, as he had been doing in recent weeks. But it was just a bit of a nothing until the second half. And then the second half, I'm not going to joke around and say we came out all guns blazing. We didn't. And they had opportunities in the second half as well. And then we kind of smash and grab it at the end, Jan, with the late winner. Two late winners. One disallowed, both go to VAR, and one is given in the 96th minute. So I'm looking back on it, just trying to frame it up for myself and for yourself in terms of our memory of the game. It felt very much like three huge points, but there was everything that we have lamented on this show over the course of the season about not being able to predict what's going to happen from one week to the next, no lessons being learned from one week to the next, the absolute certainty that he's going to pick the team, which, to be fair to the lad, he has said he will pick his team, and we know what his team is. So us crying about it every week doesn't make any difference. But all of those things, I don't care who you are disappointing, because the man in the street can see that you want to see Florian Wirtz pushed to the left and an extra midfielder because we are not strong there. Arne Slot can't see it. And so we had another struggling performance, Jan. It was a hard watch.
So I wasn't at the game and I didn't watch it live. I was down in London commentating on the Spurs Arsenal game, and the guy on the gate, or the guy on the door that gives me our accreditation, he said, "Do us a favour, Jan." I said, "What?" He said, "I'm just going to FaceTime my brother. My brother is a massive Liverpool fan. He's watching the game at home." So he's FaceTiming his brother, and I've got to speak, and the brother's going mad, isn't he? "What's going on?" He said, "It's the worst I've ever seen." I'm telling the story because also in the press room we had 2 or 3 photographers who are Liverpool fans watching it, and they're all saying the same. "What's going on?" I said, "Well, I've only seen little bits, and I'm going to watch the second half now, isn't it? I haven't quite seen what's going on, is it? But probably the same as you, Trevor. I did the preview show for Liverpool TV on Thursday. We do that in line with the press conference, and everybody was kind of guessing about the lineup. And then I was just sitting listening to Anna, and he went starters. He went my starters. And that's when I did what you did. I put Szoboszlai right back. The only one I got wrong, I had Robertson left back instead of Kirks. But the moment he went starters, I thought, well, okay, he's going to get as many as he starters in that starting 11 as he can, which means that Szoboszlai will play right back. And he can get the other 3 starters and 3 starters up front, isn't it? So as soon as he said that, just said, well, almost the alarm bells set off. And to be fair to Curtis Jones played like somebody who weren't ready and somebody who were disappointed. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, he's disappointed he hasn't started the game and he wasn't quite ready when we kicked off. But, you know, I'm hardly saying anything you haven't heard, Trevor. You know, that first half. I mean, you know, this whole thing about can we just try and do something else from the kickoff to make sure we're in the game? Can we just rugby kick the ball out of play in the corner and get into their half, or, you know, do something where you think, well, okay, we're aware that we got a problem. Yeah, we can't get into gear. Let's try and do something else. Let's try and get some motivation and some energy and intensity into our play. You know, we spoke about the game, didn't we, Trevor? The Forest game, and you know, we almost predicted that it would be like this, and then the longer the game went, they would get tired and we'd win the game. But Elliot Anderson and Morgan Gibbs-White in the first half against our midfield, that can't be right, can it? It can't be right that they. I know it wasn't a case of them creating 100 clear-cut chances, but still there was enough to worry about in open play, wasn't it? How difficult we find it to cope with so many teams and what they bring. I am a little bit baffled. And having said all of that, what's the record now, Trevor? Lost 2 of the last 18 or 2 of the last 19. It's quite incredible, isn't it? But
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, no, but as I'm sure you're about to say, that's the record. That's the stat. There's a lot of draws in there, and how many really good performances in that 18 or 19 games? 3, maybe. So when you have people asking you, genuinely tearing their hair out, saying, Jan, what's going on? And I'm sure this happens all the time. I'm sure it's been happening a lot over the weeks. It's a fair indicator, isn't it, that us fans who might actually have a clue what's going on and do understand the game are thinking, this ain't what we want to be seeing. This is not what we've signed up for. And it's really only the people with their fingers in their ears saying, la, 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 support the team, support the manager, that are completely uncritical of everyone and everything. And nobody wants to be. I think you'll agree that we would love nothing more than the opportunity to come on here every week and be blasé about how great things are and how brilliantly the team is being coached under Slot and how wonderful everyone's performances are. But we can't be dopey about it. And it just feels to me, and I just wondered, just not to put you on the spot or ask you anything controversial, there feels to be a little bit of a drift. Like, I think everyone was waiting for the click point where we turn a corner. But I have no faith that will happen at any point now, even with all these massive games ahead of us and the potential for victory and glory. I have no faith in it at all because I see nothing having changed. I see a determination to just keep chugging away at the same process. Just wondering what you think about that.
There has not been a single game this season that gives you the feeling that the show's back on the road. Not a single performance. Even the games we won, and there's been enough of those games, you know, whether that was in Frankfurt or whether it was against Real Madrid, whatever it was, Marseille, just to name a few Champions League games. But not one of them has given me the idea I'm watching something. I think it's difficult to explain. I can't explain to you how I think the team will look when I feel they're back, but I think I will know. I'm watching something here now that's sustainable. We turn the corner, yeah. But not once this season have I done that. Now, in terms of a few years ago when Liverpool were great under Jurgen Klopp, there was no room for even being slightly critical, was it, Trevor? If you criticise the performance or if you criticise the player, the fans will jump down your throat and go, no, we're all great. Yeah, fair enough, but that doesn't mean that even when you're great, you still have poor performances, but there was no room for being critical. Now, if you try and be positive, they jump down your throat, don't they? Because they're not having it. You know, you go, yeah, but I think, and they go, no, it's not happening. There's no intensity. It's not how we want to play, you know. And that's where we landed, isn't it? Which is a long time since we've been there, Trevor, where the fans are not having it, you know. And then, like you said, there's a minority of fans who generally in public, we still support the team. We do everything that we can, isn't it? Behind the scenes, traveling with people, you know, meeting people. There's more and more people, and they all ask the same question. You know, what do you think? You know, what do we need to do? How does this move forward? You know, and my big worry is that what I said before. You said it, Trevor. When does it turn? You know, because when does it turn? I mean, we're not in a position because we need to win games. We need to win games to make sure we get in the top 5, isn't it? But it's almost like just concentrate on playing well. You know, let your main focus be playing well, and let's take it from there. But our main focus at the moment is trying to get points, which makes a lot of sense, you know what I mean? But it leaves you with a lot of frustrating performances.
Yeah, and everyone leans into the, like, at the end of at the Forest game, that's 3 great points. No one's arguing that. It's wonderful. And you can take a certain amount of joy in a smash and grab like that, like the one in Paris last year. Great, fantastic. We've been outplayed, or we were unimpressive in an attacking sense, and when we snatched the victory away at the death, of course you'll take that. But in the context of something that's otherwise quite good, I suppose I'm just going to put it to you this way. Is it perhaps the most egregious of all the crimes that people are feeling affronted by at the moment is that when they're watching their team, when they're watching Liverpool, the champions, it's boring. Like, you kind of said that in the way that you've talked about, is like, just play well, yeah? Just, you know, that simple way that you've put it a few times is like, just play better.
Yeah.
It is because it's boring, isn't it, right?
Yeah, it is. And I spoke to a guy, I think it was last week, and he was in his 70s. He said, Jan, I've been going for over 50 years. He said, and I struggle to watch this team, Jan. They bore me. He said, it is boring. He said, and I never thought I'd say that about something that he loves as much as he loves his family, almost, you know. He never thought he would be capable of saying that, you know. But that's how he feels, you know. And that's kind of an indication, isn't it? So then you can kind of try and defend it with the run of results that we're having, and, you know, we're hardly ever getting beat, isn't it? But it's just, I don't know. We're at the stage now, Trevor, where we need a lift. We need something to lift us, to lift our spirits. You know what I mean? And we've always done things generally with a swagger, haven't we? You know, there's always been a bit of swagger about Liverpool Football Club. There might be 1 or 2 moments when Rafa was a very tactical manager, but generally we've always done things with a bit of a swagger, and I think that's what we want to get back to. Isn't we want to get back to a bit of a swagger and a show. We've always been like that. So let us show what we can do. You know, that's kind of how we approach games, and let us show what we can do, isn't it? But at the moment, it is definitely hard work.
It is hard work, yeah. And if we were to lean into something that's quite positive, just for the sake of doing that, for people who, you know, would prefer to focus on those things, weirdly during the week, on the back of what I consider was the most positive thing about the game, there were stories coming out about how, you know, Rio Ngumoha, this famous path to the first team, has been sort of blocked by Arne Slot, and a lot of people out there criticizing him. And then Rio himself did an interview yesterday, day before, that's when I saw it anyway, where he was talking about how important Slot is to him and how he works with him in training and how he's been integral to Rio feeling part of the club. So it's really quite interesting that that you know those stories will be going around, and it might be indicative of the fact that a lot of people aren't best disposed towards Arne Slot at the moment, and therefore these stories get a bit of traction. But to lean into the positive side of it and just take the kid's word at face value, that's great to hear. And he made such a positive impact in comparison with his far more senior colleagues on either flank who started the game. He came on, played a bit on both sides, and really, including that lovely little dinked cross at one point, and standing lads up and doing a few step overs and getting to the byline. I mean, that's football. That's the exciting stuff. That's the stuff that makes it not boring.
I think the whole thing with Rio is that football fans generally struggle to live in the present. It's either past or future, you know. And I think right now we need to live in the present with this kid. His role is exactly what we saw on Sunday. That is his role here. He's 17 years of age. He comes on for 15, 20 minutes against teams that are getting a little bit tired. He keeps the momentum up. He keeps the intensity up. That, for me, is his role. How many 17-year-olds, plenty of 17-year-olds have played in the Premier League, but how many 17-year-olds play regularly in the Premier League and are still about at the same level 5 or 6 years later? Hardly any. You know, it's only the cream. You know, people keep showing out Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney, yeah, whatever, but they were exceptional, weren't they? But a lot of 17-year-olds, they get played too early. They don't get played at the right time, because that's also a thing, Trevor. Play at the right time. When you're a senior pro or you're in your mid-20s or late 20s, you're a senior pro, you kind of got used to coping with things. Now, Rio only has one way of playing, which is like school grounds football, isn't it? That's how he plays, you know, and you can really get affected if that's not working. So I think it's a balance of playing when he's full of confidence and when he's in that mood, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's not like sticking out Van Dijk there. You stick out Van Dijk there 60 times a season, yeah. Doesn't matter. He can have a cold, he can have a headache, whatever. It doesn't matter. You stick him out there because he's got a game. Yeah. You can't do that with Rio. Rio has to be right, because at the moment he only has one game. And that is that, you know, let me show you what I can do. My pace, step overs, a few dribbles. That's the only game he's got. In time to come, he'll develop one or two other ways of being able to play. And one of them eventually will be where he's also capable of becoming part of passing triangles and whatever. But he isn't at the moment, is he? You give him the ball and then you expect he either loses it or something positive comes of it. That's how he plays for the time being. Yeah. And because that's how he plays at the moment, he cannot be expected to start Premier League games, especially not now with only so few games to go and we have to win as many as we can. So I think, honest luck with him, I've got to bang on. I don't think the kid is ready. And neither was Anna. And probably Rio probably thinks the same as well.
That's really interesting. And you can see that the impact as a substitute could be very important to us over the course of what remains of the season. And as you said earlier on, Will Arne drops the word starters. Yeah, I don't think anyone, including Rio or Arne, thinks that he's in that 11 yet. Although, you know, post Nottingham Forest, there was an awful lot of discussion that he should be. An awful lot of people kicking at some of the performances that they saw. Look, I think it's probably a good time for us to have a quick look at the schedule coming up, so that people can remind themselves of what Liverpool have ahead of them. So we'll do exactly that and let people have a look at it here. And it's starting to get very busy. We have the Saturday game against West Ham at Anfield. And we'll talk about that obviously in a few minutes, but it's just to have a look at this body of fixtures that's coming up, because I'm going to pivot to the table in a second, so we can put this in context. So we have a home game against West Ham. We also then have a Premier League follow-up game on the Tuesday. It's quick enough turnaround, away at Wolves. Within another 2 or 3 days on the Friday, we play Wolves again at Molyneux in the FA Cup this time. And then we have a Champions League fixture midweek of the following week. So that's Friday to the midweek. It's the away fixture for Liverpool, yet to be confirmed. And we're going to talk briefly about that as a topic in a few minutes as well. And then we go to play Spurs on the 15th of March at Anfield before the second leg of the Champions League tie at Anfield, again on a date to be confirmed. And March, I think the last game in March, 21st of March, is Brighton away. Now, that run, Jan, without any fear of contradiction, is something where Liverpool, if we were feeling like we've often felt about them in the past, you'd be thinking, let's lean into this. There's a season to be rescued here. There's a league table which can start to look a lot healthier on the back of that run if other fixtures go our way as well. There's a stage of the Champions League to progress through. I'm left with that same feeling, though, of having no faith in it. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I don't know what I'm basing that on, Jan.
No, I think that's a fair point. I mean, if you look at the league games and the FA Cup game, we've got 3 matches against clubs are below the line in the Premier League, and then we got an away game at Brighton who are bang out of form. We'll get the Champions League will be tough because we probably got to go to either Madrid or Galatasaray. So they are difficult away matches. But this new thing in the Champions League where you know that you'll be at home in the second leg kind of gives you a bit of confidence, doesn't it? That I can deal with this, and I think we will get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And West Ham, we're going to talk about West Ham in a minute, Trevor. A bit like the Forest game. I'm not 100%. I'm not sure it's going to be as comfortable as people are trying to tell me. I've done a few West Ham games in the last month. I don't know where they found it from, but they found something that will make them difficult. I will guarantee that. And Wolves over 2 matches, you know, I think one of them might be comfortable and the other one might be awkward. It's just which one, because I guess we would quite like to win the FA Cup as well, so we can get another game in that free week in early April, isn't it? So, but on the Champions League, who do I want? Somebody asked me that at the Hill Dickinson Stadium on Monday, and I actually said I think I prefer Atletico Madrid. I watched both Atletico Madrid's games against Club Brugge, and I thought they had a lot of trouble. Nothing wrong with Bruges. I like Bruges. They play some good football. They score an awful lot of goals in it, but if you struggle against the Belgian team, they've got the issues. You look at that Atletico Madrid team and you compare that to 5 years ago. It's not a shadow on that team, and even Julian Alvarez it looks a little bit fed up with it all. You know, having to almost carry the team on his own, and he's really dropped his levels over the last few weeks. And so I wouldn't mind going to Madrid. And Madrid's got a bit about because of the 2019 Champions League win as well, so isn't it? So it'd be a nice place to start a journey towards another final.
Yeah, and I just have the fixtures up there so people can look at them. The potential opponents are Atletico, Galatasaray, or Juventus, according to the way the Echo's broken it down there. There are some interesting potential face-offs between Monaco or PSG against Chelsea or Barca, so that's going to be an interesting one theoretically. Or Newcastle against Chelsea, Barca, possible Real versus City, or Bodo Glimt versus City. Wonder which one City will get. And then, you know, you've got Leverkusen, Arsenal, potentially, or Dortmund, Arsenal. So some very interesting potential ties in that. I'm a bit like you. I think, realistically speaking, Jan, you're just going to have to beat some good teams. And we've experience of that in our successful runs to finals, even if those finals were lost. You're just going to have to beat good teams, and you're going to have to start doing it now. And I think in many ways we've kind of already started to do it in this competition. Maybe not the best of teams, but we've had some very impressive results. So yeah, it's just a matter of continuing that run, and we'll get back to that absolutely when it becomes a bit more relevant to us and we're closer to the games and we have finalized the draw and all that. Maybe next week we'll refer back to it when we have a specific opponent. But the West Ham game is the first one out the gap, and I did want to have a quick look at some of the West Ham results of late. So let's do exactly that. Again, just for the sake of people who are watching, and it's quite popular as an option on YouTube at the moment. So let's make sure we acknowledge that. So there's Liverpool on the 28th of February. Their last time out, they were at home to Bournemouth, a 0-0. They were away at Burton in the FA Cup before that, a narrow 1-0 at Burton. They had a 1-1 home draw with Man United in the game before that, and a 2-0 away at Burnley before that. Chelsea beat them 3-2 at Chelsea's place in the game before that. And back to the 24th of January is when they had their win against Sunderland 3-1. Now, if we take a look at the most recent West Ham 11, the one that drew 0-0 against Bournemouth. We can see the lineup here for West Ham. They had Hermansen, they have Mavropanos and Disasi as centre half, and Wan-Bissaka and Juve on the flanks. Fernandez and Magassa, Souček ahead of them, Bowen one side, Somerville the other, and Castellanos up front. If we look at their bench, what can they call on? Well, I mean, they have some solid footballers to call on. Let's just go back there again. David Brooks, Ryan Christie, Callum Wilson, Mohamedou Kante, Kyle Walker-Peters. They've got Kilman, they've got Adama Traore, Todibo, Areola, Scarles, Myers. I'm looking at that squad, Jan, and I'm thinking, how are things as bad for them currently as they are? Obviously, there's plenty of reasons for that, but that's not a bad squad of footballers. They should be safe as houses. What's your take on the potential challenge that West Ham will face? As you're speaking, I'm going to pop up the table just to remind people where they are. I'll scroll slowly down through it, so go ahead there.
I just think that West Ham's biggest problem, and it generally is a problem that keeps creeping up, is that unrest sort of thing. There's always a certain amount of, ever since they moved to the London Stadium, there's that unrest. They don't feel like it's their home. They're unhappy with the owners. They've always unhappy with the managers. And I just felt that for a period this season, they sort of hid behind the managers, and the managers were obviously very unpopular with the fans. But I think now they've realised that it's for real now. Relegation stare us in the face. And I sensed when I was there against the Manchester United, that's the best atmosphere I've heard at that stadium for a football game. Terrific. It looks like the whole club, all the fans have decided, okay, we're going to give it a go now. And somehow they found defensive stability, which when you watched them early on in the season, Trevor, you thought, wow, this team will never be able to keep a clean sheet. But, they made some changes. They stuck Hermansen back in goal. They took the boy on loan from Chelsea, DSLC, who I don't rate at all. But him and Mavropanos have found some solidity at the back. And then they've got good players. Somerville is having a really, really good season. I just thought he was going to be another one of these wide men that no sort of end product. But he's had an end product to his game. Jared Bowen is always a handful. And the Portuguese boy in midfield, I like him. His name was Fernandez. I think he's a really, really good player. So they'll give us some problems. They obviously haven't got the same quality of players as we have. But I think it'll be a difficult game.
When you look at the table, it's quite stark, isn't it? To see the fact that we're talking in this way about West Ham, who are not quite propping it up, and they have a little bit of a healthy gap there over Burnley, and Forest within pulling back distance, and Spurs to an extent 4 points ahead of them. But it's not looking great, because you don't really think Forest are going to keep underperforming. You kind of fancy Vitor Pereira to get it right there. You just can't see Spurs going down. And unless Leeds have a collapse, I'd say the same about them. So it does, in a way, kind of start to look set in stone. And now we're talking about West Ham in this way that I've just heard you speak about them. I'm speaking about the strength of their squad. And now we look at Wolves, who are our other opponent that we're going to be talking about in a moment. We'll just wait for that. This situation here, Jan, should be just the ideal for Liverpool at the moment. But that speaks volumes about the wariness that we all have about the way things are, that it's just not jumping out at me like, oh, this is great.
A few years ago, Trev, I'd have gone, I'd guarantee we score at least 12 in them 3 games.
Yes.
And that was without trying to be cocky. That was just knowing what we had, what we had in our squad, what we were capable of. And now all of a sudden, you isolate the 3 games, and I can see plenty of dangers in the West Ham game. I'm not convinced that Wolves can do it over 2 games, but I think that in one of the games they will give us a really difficult game. I don't know which one. So yeah, it is bizarre that we have to almost go through that and not be sure what our team is capable of doing. It's madness.
It sure is. It sure is. Let's pay Wolves due respect. They are up next for us in the schedule. We have, like I say, West Ham are Saturday at 3, and then on Tuesday we go to Wolves for what is a 8:15 kickoff, and worth our while. Again, having a look at what Wolves have been doing recently. So if we just have a quick look at their results, we can see their most recent games there. They have Villa before us on the Friday night. And there's our game against them on the Tuesday. But last time out, they got beaten away at Crystal Palace. They had a very strange and impressive and unexpected result where they drew 2-2 with the champions-elect at Wolves. They went out to Grimsby Town and got a narrow win. Sorry, they didn't go out, but they went away to Grimsby Town and got a narrow win in the FA Cup. They had a 0-0 with Forest, who are sort of similarly placed in the league. Game before that, and a 3-1 reversal to Chelsea at home. Bournemouth beat them at home before that, and City beat them away before that. And that's the story of where Wolves are at, really. They can't seem to get any purchase at the moment. In their most recent game there against Palace, let's take a look at the lineups and just see how they got on. And the Wolves lineup was Sa in goal with Bueno, Mosquera and Krejci across the back. Chachua, Bueno, Andre and Bellegarde making up their midfield. Mane one side, who Liverpool have been linked with, interestingly. I don't know how much reality there is to that. Arakadare and Armstrong making up their attacking team. They can call on David Muller-Wolf, João Gomez, Angel Gomez, Matt Doherty, Pedro Lima, Rodrigo Gomez, Toti Gomez, Sam Johnston, and Tom Edozie. You don't need to be a genius to look at the second names of an awful lot of the footballers, and our own dearly lamented Diogo was one of them. They have a very strong link, obviously, with Portugal, and you can see that in the makeup of the squad. And whereas it was working really, really well for them for a while, that side of things doesn't seem to be as strong. That squad strength isn't there in the way that it used to be. Jan, you kind of wonder what's happening with this club. I know you have a theory on this.
I just think they've been sleepwalking towards relegation for a number of years. You sell your best players, and then you hope to replace them with cheap options. And eventually, Trevor, you cannot continue to do like for like. And I thought for a while they had the midfield two, Ruben Neves and Moutinho. Those two gave him a base to play from, and that was what Wolves was all about. They sold around those two, but once Neves, I think he went to Saudi Arabia, and Moutinho retired or went somewhere else and played whatever. And I thought then they're going to have big massive problems here now. And I just think that the business side have overtook the sporting side, and I also get the impression that that's how the Wolverhampton Wanderers fans feel. So every now and again you get in trouble. Clubs that sleepwalk towards relegation, they think they continue to get away with it. And Wolves is the last one of those. So the trouble with playing Wolves now, West Ham on Saturday will fight for their lives because they got a chance. Wolves won't fight for their lives in the same way. It's much more for them about, yes, they have to get a couple more points to make sure they're not the worst Premier League team ever, but they're trying to get a bit of enjoyment into their play. You know, they've had a dreadful season with only 10 points. So they're actually playing with a bit of enjoyment. They're trying to go forward. They're trying to be positive. They're not like a team who'll put 10 men behind the ball and try and pinch a point because a point is no good to them. So it's much more about enjoying themselves. And that's why they can be so dangerous, Trevor. Because if they get a little bit of flow into, they still got one or two players. The big worry I've got with Wolverhampton Wanderers, where do their goals come from?
Yeah, I've literally asked myself that question earlier on as I was looking at it. West Ham Saturday, Wolves Tuesday. Two huge Premier League games in the context of Liverpool having to be strong now because we know May, I'll just fast forward to it, May's a doozy. United, Chelsea, Villa. These are all going to be potential cup final games if we're in contention. What we have now is West Ham, Wolves, two teams right down the bottom, propping up the table, back to back. They have to be dispatched. But there's a question here that I want to ask you, because the turnaround from Tuesday to Friday, and just so folks know, we'll be doing, Jan and I have already spoken about this, we'll be doing the next Molby on the Spot on the Thursday, the 5th, ahead of the FA Cup game and with 2 games played to talk about. The question I have for you now is, with the idea of Arne and his starters and the idea that the FA Cup holds a potential route for success for the team in a season that's been light on it so far, is it just pretty much the team getting rolled out again and again and again with a few tweaks, minor tweaks here and there? Can we expect, do you think, pretty much the same starters across those 3? Or has his hand been forced a little bit now by the proximity of those 2 Wolves games?
Yeah, I think so. I think there'll be changes for the FA Cup game against Wolves. The other 2, barring injuries or suspensions, will pretty much be the same. And I'm also pretty sure that the Champions League, we will have the away leg on a Tuesday. And then the following Wednesday, we'll play at home because we play Spurs on a Sunday at Anfield. And that game has not been requested to be moved, which means that UEFA have agreed that Liverpool and Spurs will both play their second leg on a Wednesday. So we'll play Saturday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday. And I think because of that, his hand will be forced a little bit. To what extent for the Wolves away game in the FA Cup, I don't know. Because he's well aware that it is a competition he could do with progressing in. And also because of the way that the next round falls. The next round of that FA Cup falls on the 4th and 5th of April, which means there's no Premier League games until the 11th. There's a Champions League game in between us. And so I think he quite liked the idea of getting through to the next round and having that game early in April when the boys come back from international football. And I guess the majority of the players are going away from international football. Most of it will be friendlies because there's only a few playoff games, isn't it? Although, I don't know, are they playing World Cup qualifiers? I might have got that totally wrong. Maybe they are playing World Cup qualifiers. So his hand will be forced a little bit for the FA Cup game. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, there is that window there. I think you're right. I think that's where those World Cup games will likely be.
Yeah, probably,
that fortnight or so there. I have put a lot on the plate as usual, and I really appreciate you rolling with the punches on things like the top 10s and that, and engaging us with the chats. Very much appreciated as usual. But we're getting to that time of the show where we should get your predictions for the 2 games that are up ahead of us. So first up is West Ham, then Wolves. Your feeling on how both of those go?
I think the West Ham game is going to be quite difficult. I look at our 2 wide guys against Forest, Mo and Gakpo can have a great deal of impact. I think they're going to struggle again because West Ham have got 2 really good fullbacks, 2 athletic fullbacks, who will make it very difficult for them to get into the game. Having said that, the whole sort of Anfield, the need that we need to win, and probably Florian Wirtz being back, I think we'll beat West Ham 2-1. Wolves away, kind of toy between one's going to be really tough and the other one might not be. So I think the FA Cup game is going to be the one that might be game on. They'll probably go with their strongest 11 and we'll rest a few. So the league game is, as I said before, I can't see where Wolves are going to get their goals from. So the Premier League game, sorry, it's Wolves 0, Liverpool 3.
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't that be lovely? Yes, let's get ourselves in a roll of correct Jan Molby calls here and enjoy them on the back of a successful run-in. Because look, you can talk all you like about how bad things are, but we retain hope because that's the way you're wired as a football fan. Jan, as ever, man, thanks a million for the flexibility. Really appreciate it. I know that people will have enjoyed the section at the start, so thanks for entertaining us around that.
It's a great time of the season, Trevor, isn't it? You know, this is where it matters, isn't it? I love this, the runners of the season, that pressure, so let's embrace it and let's see where it takes us.
Let's hope the lads love it. Let's hope the squad loves it and the atmosphere is there. It's the only doubt I have is this something seems off. So look, hopefully some muscle memory kicks in and these guys who are winners actually win something this year and we can all celebrate. Thanks to Jan as ever for a fantastic show. We really appreciate him here on Anfield Index. Nobody quite like him in the game and it's a pleasure to work with him. So from Jan, from myself, good luck.